Hi, I'm Marsha Weisiger, the Julie and Rocky Dixon Chair of U.S. Western History at the University of Oregon. I teach and study the American West and environmental history. Environmental history is the study of how humans and nature have shaped each other over time. The philosopher Kierkegaard once said, "Life must be lived forward, but it can only be understood backward." Looking back, I realized that I was fascinated with history from an early age, but when I was in high school, I thought history was a boring subject. In fact, a high school history teacher suggested I become a historian, and I just laughed and told him that I didn't want to study dead people. But when I got to college and took my first history class, I discovered I did want to be a historian. I took a class from some amazing storytellers who taught me that history is about who we are today. When I got out of college, I worked for a while for an architect, doing research for him. He was a historic preservationist. And one of our first projects was to work on the history of a ranch on the U.S.-Mexico border, where gold seekers and soldiers from the U.S.-Mexico War traveled through. And I became fascinated with their diaries and the kinds of things that they had to say about the landscape, which they described as hell on earth. And at the same time, I was doing a community history of Phoenix, and an early settlement period in which they were promoting the irrigation of the Salt River Valley and saying that irrigation would make it bloom like another Garden of Eden. My current research is on western rivers, and I'm interested in two kind of big questions. And one is, what do we mean by wildness? I ask that because we tend to think of western rivers as places that have become degraded dramatically over time because of dams, logging, overgrazing, mining, all kinds of impacts on those rivers. But what I want to think about is, how are those rivers resilient? I love to teach. What I love about teaching is seeing students make the connection between what you're teaching them and what they already know, between their families' lives and the larger history in which their families' lives are embedded, between past and present. All of those things, seeing that click in a student's head really gives me great joy.